Good morning, Brew Daily Show. I'm Neal Freyman.
And I'm Toby Howell.
Today, Sam Altman called Elon Musk not a happy person. Let's go inside the billionaire battle over the future of AI.
Then the publishing world is locked in a heated debate over those little blurbs you see on the back of books. It's Wednesday, February 12th. Let's ride.
The Super Bowl wasn't the only contest that everyone you know is talking about this week. The Westminster Dog Show was held last night, and Best in Show went to a giant schnauzer named Monty. It's the most prestigious prize in the U.S. dog show world, where dogs are judged according to how closely they match the ideal for their breed. Monty's owner and handler could barely hold back tears on the podium. Puppy did the damn thing, and I'm so proud of him, she said. Having been named the top dog, Monty will now be retiring from competition. Toby, what did you accomplish when you were 5 years old?
Absolutely nothing compared to Monty. This was Monty's third time in a row representing the working group classification of dogs. So screw the Chiefs dynasty. Monty is its own, dynasty. Hopefully it kicks off a new era for the working group, though. This was its first win since 2004. You also got a feel for Bourbon the Whippet, who was a runner-up for the third time at the competition. And get this, the 9.5-year-old came out of retirement just days before the competition. So what a performance out of Bourbon. Other finalists did include the crowd favorite Neal, the Bichon Frise, representing the non-sporting group. Neal, never heard of a dog called Neal.
That is also the first time I've heard of a dog named Neal, and I feel bad for that dog, to be honest.
But get this, Neal, heel. Does kind of roll off the tongue. But congrats to Monty. Its owner says it's retiring from the competition on top. What a performance. Now a word from our sponsor, Wise Business. Neal, I noticed you've been getting into jigsaw puzzles lately.
I love it. Very meditative.
But you also do them without looking at the picture on the box. That is wild to me.
I like the challenge.
You're puzzling with one hand behind your back. It's like trying to send and receive international payments without using Wise. You are choosing to ignore a tool that could make things faster and easier.
Well, I'm not an international business owner. I'm just a humble puzzler.
Thank goodness you aren't, because growing businesses know that Wise Business is the move. Just like a real puzzler knows that looking at the picture can speed up your process.
I'll admit, Wise Business is the move, but you can never make me look at the picture.
Don't be like Neal. Visit wise.com/business to speed up your payment processes abroad. That's wise.com/business. Well, Mom, the billionaires are fighting again. Sam Altman and Elon Musk escalated their beef yesterday, with the two trading barbs on X and in interviews over Elon's last-ditch attempt to hijack a deal to make OpenAI a for-profit company. Earlier this week, Elon shocked the tech bro world by making an unsolicited bid to purchase the nonprofit arm that controls OpenAI for $97.4 billion. Elon co-founded the multi-billion-dollar startup with Sam Altman as a nonprofit back in 2015, but has spent much of the past few years railing against Altman's plan to convert the company into a for-profit entity. Through submitting a bid, Elon has thrown a wrench into those carefully laid plans. OpenAI's board doesn't have a fiduciary responsibility to maximize returns, since it's technically a charity. But by submitting a bid, Elon is setting a public floor price for anything Altman ends up offering, likely forcing him to paying a higher price to take control. Altman spent much of yesterday morning discrediting Elon's Hail Mary as an attempt to slow down a competitor, reminding everyone that Elon has his own AI company, xAI. But Altman also took the time to offer up some personal jabs, adding that Elon's whole life is from a position of insecurity and that he, quote, feels for the guy. Neal, it is Real Housewives of AI out there with billions of dollars and the future of artificial general intelligence at stake.
Yeah, OpenAI right now is trying to pull off a routine of Simone Biles level difficulty. What they're trying to do right now is one of the most complex maneuvers in American commercial history. It's got this $500 billion data center project called Stargate with Oracle and SoftBank. At the same time, it's raising $40 billion at a $300 billion valuation. That would be the largest venture capital round by orders of magnitude in American history. For those to happen, it needs to be able to convert from this nonprofit for-profit structure that it's in right now to streamline that into one cohesive for-profit company that allows it to raise money. Right now, it is handcuffed to raise money because of this weird structure that it's in. So it needs to be able to execute this deal. And Elon Musk, as Sam Altman is probably correctly saying, is trying to throw a wrench in it and slow it down. Even if he's not able to stop it, OpenAI has a lot on their agenda, a lot of mouths to feed, this very complex maneuver, and Elon Musk is certainly making that more difficult.
Yeah, and what needs to happen is the board needs to, pick a side, essentially. OpenAI did completely overhaul its board members. Remember the blow-up that happened between Altman and the old board of directors last year. So in theory, right now, the board is, on Altman's side. It oversees the nonprofit arm, which in turn controls the for-profit business. Also, who is on that board? None other than the former chairman of Twitter, Bret Taylor. He was the chairman of Twitter when Musk made his other unsolicited bid to buy that business and then tried to back out before, he was eventually forced to buy the business. So he has a very fraught history with Elon Musk, to say the least. It is just like this. Bret Taylor cannot escape Elon Musk trying to buy every single business he's on the board of. So the same time, though, the board could hypothetically say, wait a second, this is a legitimate offer. Let's see what you have to cook up, Altman. They can't just dismiss it completely out of hand. So hypothetically, the board should side with Altman, but you never know in instances when, you have billions of dollars on the line.
And there's also a chance this is a complete smokescreen because OpenAI board director Larry Summers, who's the former Treasury Secretary, said he had not received any formal outreach from Elon Musk and that consortium of investors who put forward this nearly $100 billion bid. Sam Altman also told employees that he hasn't received anything official from the Musk team. So we'll see whether this is bluster or actually a real bid in the first place.
And then the final point to make here, I mentioned that the board doesn't have a fiduciary responsibility like most for-profit boards do, but they do have an obligation to fulfill OpenAI's kind of legal purpose, and that legal purpose is safely advancing artificial intelligence to benefit humanity. So the question of price is secondary to the question of whether this sales fulfills the mission that the nonprofit arm set out to achieve. So it gets a little nebulous there, but that is one other aspect of this that you have to pay attention to.
And this is very all soap opera-y, obviously, but there is so much at stake, billions of dollars, but also the future of AI. OpenAI is one of the leading AI companies in the world. Every corporate exec and technology leader says this is the next industrial revolution. So who controls what happens going forward with this technology is of crucial importance to everyone around the world. And right now, these two guys are duking it out to be that person. Is milk the future of Coke? And by that, I don't mean milk-flavored Coke, which would try, but Coca-Cola, the drinks conglomerate, which is leaning into the white stuff to become a, quote, total beverage company amid declining soda sales. In its earnings call yesterday, Coca-Cola touted the milk brand Fairlife for continuing to perform well throughout the year. That is an understatement. It's Coke's fastest growing brand in the United States and the centerpiece of its plan to diversify away from soda into beverages that people, drink. On the surface, milk might seem like a bad choice. U.S. per capita milk consumption has plunged nearly 30% since 2010 as Americans have turned to plant-based alternatives. But Fairlife is not ordinary milk. It's milk but fancy. It filters milk to create higher levels of protein while cutting sugar by half and getting rid of lactose altogether for happier stomachs. Fans worship its creaminess, propelling sales to grow 1,000% from 90 million in 2015 to 7 years later when it became a billion-dollar brand for the first time. Toby, food and drink companies are under a lot of pressure from changing consumer trends, high inflation, and the Ozempic craze. So here's the big question. Is it milk or milk?
It is a milk, Neal. Also, I have tried Fairlife, and it is very deliciously creamy. A lot of fans do just like it because it's got a je ne sais quoi to it. It's got that creaminess. I didn't even know that it got rid of lactose when I first tried it. You just think it's really good milk. But I think it shows that Coke is on this path towards evolving away from, its bread and butter, which is soda. They're reading the consumer wins right now that are saying that we want healthier things. We don't want these sugary beverages to be our main thing that, props the company up. So we have been seeing them pour money into coffee, into sports drinks. They bought Body Armor a few years ago. They've bought these coffee brands, and now they have this milk brand that I don't think they had high hopes for when they first bought it. You don't think about milk as a tentpole product, but when you kind of innovate and you add these extra layers that consumers really start flocking to, you see how milk can be Coke's fastest growing U.S. brand.
Yeah, I don't think they knew what they were getting into. This deal has a very interesting history. Back in 2012, they entered a joint venture with a milk co-op, a dairy co-op, which created the Fairlife brand in response to declining milk sales. And their initial outlays were about $320 million, but this deal had some performance-based payments that continued through this year, and the performance was really good for Fairlife. So they kept having to pay over these performance-based payments. So now at this point, they forked, which started as a $320 million deal, has now morphed into a $7.4 billion deal over 5 years, and that's now the largest acquisition in Coke's 133-year history. So it's cost them a lot, but it seems like they're getting their return.
Right. It's kind of a good problem to have. What's ironic about this whole thing, too, is the U.S. milk industry isn't doing very well. The sector's been facing the same sort of headwinds that, the soda industry's been facing, where a lot of kids and a lot of people just aren't drinking milk anymore. Also, you look at plant-based alternatives, oat milk, soy milk, they have surged. So U.S. per capita milk consumption is down nearly 30% since 2010. It does closely mirror the soft drinks industry's fall as well. Since 2000, the total amount of soft drinks consumed in the U.S. each year has sunk by 37%. So somehow we're combining a soft drink company with a milk company, and yet 1 + 1 is equaling 3 in this instance because of just the approach that Fairlife has taken. Shopify finally booted the artist formerly known as Kanye West from their platform after the rapper used a Super Bowl ad to direct traffic to a site that only sold swastika shirts. Towards the end of Sunday's game, Ye's ad appeared on screen in markets including LA, Atlanta, and Philadelphia. In the 30-second spot, he told people to go to Yeezy.com, but within an hour of the commercial airing, Ye's website got rid of its normal inventory and instead only had one product for sale, a $20 t-shirt with a swastika on the front. Shopify drew widespread condemnation for keeping Ye's store open for orders throughout Monday before it took the site offline yesterday morning, citing a violation of its terms. This isn't Shopify's first scandal either. Despite months-long public outrage, another Shopify-powered store that sells Holocaust denial merch is still active. Neal, last year Shopify removed a ban on, quote, hateful content from its user policies, so those recently loosened acceptable use policies are in the spotlight again after this incident.
Yeah, my first question for this was also, how did this commercial pass muster to air? I mean, we didn't see it because we were watching in the New York market, but apparently he bought 30-second spot on 3 Fox-owned channels, and the ad, which many people in America did not see, but many people did see, was him in a seemingly dentist chair filming on an iPhone. And, this has to go through legal approval. So these station directors looked at this and said, okay, well, I guess there's nothing apparently wrong or illegal here. And when he did direct people to this website during the Super Bowl itself, but during the Super Bowl, this store sold very generic, non-branded merchandise, nothing like the swastika shirts. And then hours after is when he flipped it, leaving these studio execs being like, what did we just do? But it speaks to the fact that Super Bowl commercials are also not always national, and these very slick productions, sometimes they're local car businesses and lawyers, and often more controversial advertisers will buy, spots in local markets for hundreds of thousands of dollars. It's still very expensive, but kind of skirt the national spotlight. It seems like this is kind of what Kanye did.
It's also, created some uncomfortable moderation questions at Shopify particularly, but it goes beyond, Shopify in recent months right now, because remember, they loosened its acceptable use policies last year, but also, they're not the only ones doing that. Meta announced it was ending its fact-checking system in favor of this community note system that you see on a platform like X. Google also has recently told the EU that it's not adding fact-checkers to search results in YouTube videos. So it is part of the climate that we're in right now, that it does seem like we're in this loosening of content moderation, which is why sometimes you're going to see these instances like what just happened with Shopify start popping up more and more. And then also, just to zoom out here, this kind of ends the ability of Kanye West, or he's known as Ye now, to, be a force for, any sort of selling of anything, because remember, he had this big collaboration with Adidas that ended in 2022 over anti-Semitic remarks back then. Remember, he had another big deal with Gap where he was going to partner with them to release a line of clothing. That fell through as well. So you have seen Ye had a sports industry that signed athletes like Jaylen Brown, Aaron Donald. They all left back in 2022 as well. So you are seeing just kind of this collapse of the Kanye West economy. Whatever last vestiges there were, it is now completely gone. Up next, what's up with this blurb drama going down on the back of books?
Now to a page-turner of a story that you won't be able to put down. It truly is a tour de force that redefines how we think about the genre. I, of course, am talking about the controversy sweeping the publishing world around book blurbs. You know, those short, cliche-heavy sentences you see plastered on books from other authors, goading you into buying it. Well, maybe they're not as permanent a fixture as we thought. Earlier this month, Simon & Schuster generated a storm when publisher Sean Manning wrote an essay, a gripping read if you ask me, railing against the book blurb industrial complex and stated that the company would no longer require authors to solicit blurbs for their books. I believe the insistence on blurbs has become incredibly damaging to what should be our industry's ultimate goal, producing books of the highest possible quality, he wrote. That tremor followed another literary earthquake in December when best-selling author Rebecca Makkai said she'd stop blurbing books for at least the next 2 years, calling it a drain on her time and energy. Toby, blurbs are an incredibly touchy topic among authors. No one actually likes to ask for them or receive requests to write them, but you seemingly should do it because this is what the industry has demanded. Can the blurb economy be reformed?
At stake in all this worrying about blurbs is also this underlying fear about the state of publishing and, the book industry in general. Remember in 2022, there was this lawsuit blocking a merger between Simon & Schuster and Penguin Random House. And that lawsuit revealed that just how much publishing relies on the top 0.1% of authors that they expect to sell very, very well. They put most of their resources and most of their marketing behind the big names of the industry. And what that does is leave very little just scraps over for kind of the rest of the 99% of the book industry. So a lot of authors have come out and say, we still need blurbs because we have no marketing spend. This is our one chance to get some, advertising for free by hitting up our peers, hitting up our author friends that we know. And a lot of authors say, listen, it's not for people like you and me, Neal. It's not for people just cruising the bookshelves of your random bookstore. We don't care that much about blurbs, but what who does care are people who read professionally, book reviewers who, when they're sorting through a mountain of books, they will glance at the blurbs and say, all right, who did recommend this, to maybe move a book from the bottom of the pile to the top of the pile. So it's not as cut and dry as it's just this cronyism and it's just you scratch my back, I scratch yours. It does still have a place in the publishing industry.
It's for the gatekeepers, right? But it was interesting to me to learn how this process comes together, because I guess I didn't really think about it that much. When you see a blurb on a book, you don't really think about how it got there. But apparently, before a book is published, the authors of books who don't have massive marketing behind them, which is most of them, just literally cold email thousands of other authors asking them to read their book and blurb it. And oftentimes it is their teachers from their MFA programs. But anyway, so they send they do this like grind, hit the pavement for 3 weeks trying to get these blurbs. And then so that does not sound fun, but you have to do it. At the other end, if you're an author, you are getting all of these requests going into you at the same time you're sending them out. So this is very painful for everyone involved, a huge time suck. So that's sort of why everyone hates doing it, even though if they feel they must. At the same time, it's unclear whether these blurbs actually move the needle in terms of sales.
I mean, we said it ourselves, like you probably do not look at, because they all kind of start to blend together, like a dazzling display of this and that. So
it's just the name attached to it.
Right. The name,
Stephen King.
Neal Freyman. All of this said, Neal, if you do write a book eventually, I would definitely blurb your book, because a lot of it is actually just your friends will do it for you. So if you do have friends in the author community, and people joke that oftentimes when you see blurbs, all it does is show which MFA program the author attended to, because it is most of your teachers. So all that being said, asking for praise is oftentimes a very undignified business, so it is tough for the authors out there, but we'll see if we start seeing less blurbs going forward. I think the ultimate flex is publishing a book. No blurbs necessary, just let it, speak for itself.
Catch 22. Okay, let's sprint to the finish with some final headlines. The DEI rollback continues apace across corporate America, with more major companies reversing pledges on diversity, equity, and inclusion under the directives of the new Trump administration. The U.S. arm of consulting behemoth Deloitte told its employees working on government contracts to remove gender pronouns from their email signatures, and they scrapped broader DEI programs, citing the need to, quote, align with emerging government client practices and requirements. Also yesterday, Goldman Sachs abandoned ship on its pledge to refuse to work on IPOs for companies that had all-white male boards. It made a rule back in 2020 that it would only take a company public in the U.S. if it had at least 2 diverse board members, including 1 woman. A spokesperson said, as a result of legal developments related to board diversity requirements, we ended our formal board diversity policy.
You are seeing just this about face at so many companies, because I remember back in 2020, David Solomon made this really big deal at the World Economic Forum in
CEO
Davos.
of Goldman Sachs.
CEO of Goldman Sachs said that, hey, we realized that the last 60 U.S. and European companies in the preceding 2 years went public without a woman or a person of color on the board. So made this very big deal about instituting these diversity requirements. But now you see the wind blowing the other direction, and they're kind of quietly sunsetting that big pledge that they made back in 2020. Same thing with Deloitte as well. Deloitte is trying to toe the line on both sides, where they are trying to, listen to the practices that they're hearing come down from the federal government, but they're also, like their UK arm said, we're still committed to its diversity policy. So they're trying to play both sides of it here. It's left corporate America in this very weird position where they're just kind of submitting to a lot of the pledges they made just a few years prior. So you are starting to see the companies that actually truly do have a commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion. The companies like Costco, companies like Apple that have had it for decades before 2020, decades before the Trump administration. Those are the ones that are sticking to their guns, while a lot of people are falling in line with what the Trump administration wants. For our next headline, CEOs are starting to sound off on Trump's tariffs. First up, Ford CEO Jim Farley raised the alarm against President Trump's proposed 25% duties on Mexico and Canada, warning that their effect on the industry would be devastating. Speaking at an automotive conference yesterday, Farley said, "Let's be real honest, long-term, a 25% tariff across the Mexico and Canadian border will blow a hole in the U.S. industry that we have never seen." Though Trump paused those tariffs for 30 days early last week, the auto industry is continuing to scramble as it tries to prepare for levies that could add up to $60 billion in additional costs to the industry. Then Citadel CEO Ken Griffin offered up his displeasure at a financial services conference in Florida, saying, quote, "It's a huge mistake to resort to this form of rhetoric when you're trying to drive a bargain, because it tears into the minds of CEOs, policymakers, that we can't depend upon America as our trading partner." His comments came after Trump signed an order that would impose 25% tariffs on steel and aluminum imports. So, Neal, in the case of Griffin, those comments are coming from an ardent Trump voter and supporter, so they mean a lot.
Yeah, you've heard this from a bunch of CEOs that these tariff threats and reversals are creating a lot of uncertainty. And Griffin cited multinationals, and in particular that you need to plan 5, 10, 15, 20 years in the future, because you're about to sink tens of billions of dollars into a factory or another kind of investment. Requires a lot of planning, requires a lot of money, and you just simply can't make those kind of investments when you're uncertain of the trade policy that the U.S. is going to engage with the rest of the world. So uncertainty, bad for corporate America, and that's what Ken Griffin is saying. Gulf of America / Mexico drama at the White House. The Trump administration barred an Associated Press reporter from entering the Oval Office for an executive order signing ceremony because the AP style still uses the name Gulf of Mexico instead of Gulf of America, despite Trump's renaming of the body of water. The news service said it was alarming that the White House would punish AP or independent journalism, and that, quote, "it not only severely impedes the public's access to independent news, it plainly violates the First Amendment." Amendment. The AP's guidance states that it will refer to that Gulf by its original name while acknowledging the new name Trump has chosen. And that's because the Gulf of Mexico name has been around for 400 years, and people internationally, where the AP disseminates news, do not recognize the change.
AP Stylebook is not only used by its own journalists either, it is used by news outlets around the globe, which is why this has, some global reverberations essentially. And yeah, they are saying that, hey, our journalism doesn't just go out to people in the U.S. It doesn't just affect people in the United States. So we are going to continue offering or referring to it by the name that the rest of the world recognizes it by. That is not the case, though, for Mount McKinley, because Trump changed that name from its former name, Denali. That area, Alaska, is clearly in the United States. So Trump does have full authority to change that name. So the AP says it will use the new name, Mount McKinley. But I just can't believe how many words and how much ink has been spilled over this gall darn body of water off the coast of Florida here. But I guess you do have to make decisions. You have, when you run a style book, you have to make these decisions. So yes, it might be making a bigger deal out of it than it probably is in the grand scheme of things. But still, these decisions do have widespread effects. Finally, if you happen to find yourself in Australia attending a Bryan Adams show, our condolences go out to you. Instead of hearing a delightful rendition of Summer of '69, audiences were sent home after a giant sewer fatberg made of grease and rags forced Adams to cancel his show in Perth. A fatberg is the technical term for a giant rock-like mass that forms when non-biodegradable solids like wet wipes mix with fat, oil, and grease deposits to create a toilet-clogging monstrosity in sewer mains. Over the weekend, authorities made the call that the fatberg was menacing enough that it could cause the venue's toilets to overflow, which, along with being a major vibe killer, is a health risk. Neal, a 140-ton fatberg discovered in London was autopsied to find all sorts of things from ketamine to condoms. A 330-ton one from 2021 nearly took down Birmingham in the UK. And all told, NPR reporting from 2017 found that fatbergs were costing London's water provider more than $1.3 million a month to remove. These things are devastating.
You'll never be the same. My life is now divided into two parts. Before I knew that fatbergs existed, and now that I know that they exist, they are pretty terrifying, and they do make sense on the surface. You're like, oh yeah, that probably would happen over time as all of these non-degradable things mesh together in our sewer system and create blockages. My question is, how has a fatberg, anthropomorphized fatberg, not been a villain in a movie yet? Like,
Flushed away or something like that.
What are we doing here?
I know. It is. So where does the term fatberg come from? It's a portmanteau of fat and iceberg. It makes sense. I mean, over time, these things can't be broken down, so they just create these giant blockages. And dismantling them are a huge headache. I mean, I talked about that one in London. It took 8 weeks and 36 tanker loads, each 3,000 gallons each, to remove the debris from the site. And all told, it costs over $100,000 to clear. So it is.
How do you do it?
I think you just chip away down there. You must have to open the sewer main and do it manually. I don't understand any other way to do it. So it is horrifying to think about that these things are just moving silently underneath our feet.
Let's wrap it up there. Thanks so much for starting your morning with us, and have a wonderful Wednesday. For any questions, comments, or feedback, send an email to morningbrew@morningbrew.com. And if you're enjoying the show, share it with a friend, family member, or coworker. Toby, who should people share it with today?
I want you to share this show with someone you'd hit up for a book blurb. The person who would gas you up no matter how awkward it is to ask for praise. That is who I want you to share the show with.
Let's roll the credits. Emily Milliron is our executive producer. Raymond Liu is our producer. Olivia Graham is our associate producer. Uchenna Ogu is our technical director. Garrett Peck is on audio. Hair and makeup is the voice of their generation, spinning a heart-wrenching tale of love and woe. Neal Freyman, host of Morning Brew Daily. Devin Emery is our chief content officer, and our show is a production of Morning Brew.
Great show today, Neal. Let's run it back tomorrow.